What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, and today I'll be continuing my NBA draft series with part 2, taking a look at shooting guards today. And for those who didn't see my last video, I use a formula to grade players, and I'm not afraid to disagree with the consensus. Well, here's my big board, and you can tell already this is a weak shooting guard class in my opinion. And for those who didn't see my last video, my highest ranked player is Joel Embiid at 74, so 68 is a pretty big drop off. And I just want to clear up one more thing before we get started. The players you see on your screen are not the only players I evaluated, but those are the players who are in my top 10, and the other notables are players who are likely to get drafted who didn't make my top 10. So for example, Sean Kilpatrick and Jordan McRae are not expected to be drafted, and they didn't make my top 10, so they're not on your screen. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. Markel Brown. When you first hear he has a 43-inch vertical and is a projected second-round pick, you think that's all he can do, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Not only is he one of the best athletes in the draft, he's a good outside shooter, shooting 38 from three-point land this past season. He's a solid defender, can finish at the basket, and is an excellent rebounder for a guard. Now his two main negatives is he's a bit undersized at 6'4" for the two-guard position, though he has a long wingspan, and he has trouble creating a shot off the dribble. But in the end, some teams should get a steal with this guy in the second round, and he's number 1 on my big board in a weak shooting guard class. James Young out of Kentucky University, a projected top 15 pick, and that's about where I have him. He's a scoring wing who doesn't do anything great in particular, but doesn't really have a glaring weakness either. He's a good outside shooter who can get to the hole, and what I like about him is he's 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan, great size for a wing, and he's only 18 years old and one of the youngest players in this draft. Now, he's not great on defense and needs to improve his shot selection, but I think he can be a nice scoring wing in the NBA. Next is Jordan Adams out of UCLA, and on the surface, I didn't really like this guy as an NBA prospect. He's unathletic and just an average defender who shot just an average 3-point percentage in college. But when I dug deeper, I found he did all the little things well. He's a quality passer, an excellent rebounder, and he really is a scoring guard who can get to the basket and finish and shoots a high percentage at the free throw line. He's also a very strong guard with a 6'10" wingspan. An instinctive player who gets steals as well. Despite his poor athleticism, some teams should be very happy to grab him in the second round. Gary Harris out of Michigan State University, a projected top 10 pick. What scouts love about him is he's a two-way player who defends and can shoot from the outside, who is also a very good athlete. He does need to improve his three-point shooting percentage, and he's a bit undersized at 6'4" with a 6'7" wingspan. There are also concerns that he might not be able to create his shot that much in the NBA, and his shot selection isn't the best. I think he'll be a solid NBA player, but at this point, he's a tad overrated. Nick Stauskas out of Michigan University. I'm sure you all know he's an incredible three-point shooter, and he's good height for his position at 6'6". Now, besides that, he's an average athlete, a poor defender, only 0.6 steals per game, and a mediocre rebounder. I think he can have a Jason Kapono-like career. I like that comparison, maybe win a few three-point shooting competitions, but outside of that, he doesn't seem like an NBA starter to me. PJ Hairston was at North Carolina University, but due to some off-the-court issues, he spent last season in the NBA D-League. He does a lot of things well, but nothing elite. He's a big, strong wing who's a good outside shooter, a solid defender, though he does sometimes have lapses on defense, and a good finisher at the basket. But at the same time, he's a poor passer and has bad shot selection. I wonder how he'll fare in the NBA, and I'm not sure if he can give a team enough on offense or defense to make it worthwhile to have him on the floor. Combine that with his off-the-court issues, and he's a risky pick. Now, when you hear Zach LaVine out of UCLA has crazy athleticism, is a very good shooter with range, and is good size at 6'6" for the shooting guard position, you may ask why he's not a top 5 pick. But after that, literally every other category I looked at, he was mediocre to bad. He is not a very good defender and rarely shows desire at that end of the floor, and his motor in general is less than stellar. When he gets to the basket, which isn't often because he's not a good penetrator, he avoids contact and is a bad finisher. He is rail thin, only 181 pounds, and has a terrible shot selection, often taking long contested jumpers. He's an average passer and rebounder at best, and is 2 years away from being a star college player. Can he be an effective NBA player? Maybe in 5 or 6 years, but does that help the team that drafts him in the first round? No, he's a major project and one I do not advise any team drafting in the first round. CJ Wilcox out of Washington University is a great outside shooter, and he's a good athlete with solid size for his position, but besides shooting, he doesn't really do anything else well. He's an average defender who doesn't do a great job creating, especially not in the NBA. He's a mediocre rebounder, and add that with the fact that he's already 23 years old, and I think even in the second round, he's not a great pick. Bogdan Bogdanovic out of Serbia is a projected second-round pick. He's a good, not great shooter and a solid court vision as a passer, though he is turnover prone. He's a mediocre athlete, an average defender, and is not really efficient due to his poor shot selection, and he has trouble finishing at the basket. I don't think he'll ever be a good NBA player. He's not a plus defender, and he has a lot of holes in his offensive game also. Just know when some team picks him in the second round, he's not the next Manu Ginobili. Well, there you have it, guys. One last look at my rankings, and small forwards is next. And you can see how many mediocre to bust type players I have projected at the shooting guard position. There are some nice gems in there like Jordan Adams and Markel Brown, but in general, obviously, a very weak shooting guard class this year in my opinion. Well, see you next time.